os parasitas reduzindo a sua atividade e finalmente morrendo.
Come to the biology section.
Professor, your lunch appointment.
Oh, yes. You know Margaret, my secretary.
Frau Ehrlich has come for you.
Ah, Edwin. I won't be long. Carl, I'd like you to meet...
Paul!
Yes, dear. I won't be long. Here. This is Dr. Shiga. We've tried most of the benzopipurin series, but always the same result. Isn't it, Dr. Shiga?
We hold up death for 2 or 3 days, but no more.
Have you considered the arsenicals for this?
Oh, yes. We tried atoxyl.
But we get no results with it.
Yes, now Thomas and Brynell in England did. Perhaps we should try it again.
Yes, maybe you should.
Oh, we mustn't be late for Frau Speer.
My dear, I want you to meet Dr. Herxheimer of the State Hospital. How lucky we are to be in Frankfurt, where we've so many good friends to help us.
Yes, of course. But we must go.
Oh, your cuffs, Professor. Oh, thank you, Carver.
Oh, look at your hands.
Oh.
You can't have luncheon with the wealthiest woman in Frankfurt with hands like that.
If she's as wealthy as you say, I dare say she has a wash basin. Carl. Oh. Now, we mustn't keep Frau Speer waiting.
Com os problemas científicos de Ehrlich se tornando cada dia mais complexos, o almoço resultou numa agradável surpresa. A anfitriã, Frau Speer, estava em busca de um memorial para o marido, um banqueiro que morrera no ano anterior. Uma das possibilidades era um novo instituto para Ehrlich.
Just a lot of money.
I have a lot of money.
What was your husband's name?
George. Why?
The George Speer Institute of Chemotherapy. Wonderful. Marvelous. Thank you. Now, at last, we shall begin to make progress.
Para o novo trabalho possibilitado pela doação, Ehrlich precisou contratar mais gente. Dr. von Braun ficou encarregado do laboratório químico. Com ele vieram o Dr. Schmidt e um amigo de Frau Speer, Dr. Bertheim. Diariamente, independente da idade de cada um, todos recebiam instruções por escrito de Ehrlich sobre o que deveriam fazer. Apesar do número maior de funcionários, Ehrlich, ainda o pesquisador solitário, recusava-se a delegar responsabilidades.
Persistent strains resist not just one chemical agent, but the whole series. Confirmed by supplying Hunt with all trypan red derivatives and arrange experiments. Rats? What does he mean, rats?
It's absolutely impossible.
They don't even have any rats at the moment.
As frustrações da equipe de Ehrlich foram agravadas pelas numerosas experiências que haviam demonstrado a ineficácia de todas as drogas utilizadas até agora. Alheio a essas tensões, Ehrlich trabalhava com um novo grupo de compostos contendo arsênico. Mas até a mais promissora dessas substâncias, a toxi, revelou-se excessivamente potente. De acordo com uma análise da sua fórmula, ela era muito estável. Mas num teste analítico rotineiro, Ehrlich obteve um resultado totalmente inesperado. A cor laranja significava que a substância não era estável e que podia dar origem a milhares de derivados, cada um deles podendo apresentar as propriedades adequadas.
Tried a toxil years ago.
Incredible. You know, I think atoxyl has been wrongly constituted. Patient made a major error.
Patient made.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, good day, Von Braun.
Sir, this block you sent me.
My orders must always be carried out, Von Braun.
But the biology section don't have any rats at the moment. Dr. Hunt suggests we use mice instead.
Oh, no, rats. For injection purposes.
Why, sir?
Why? Rats have tails. We inject into the tail vein.
So, as it happens, do mice.
Of course. Of course. That's true. Mice have tails.
Rats, he says. Use rats because rats have tails. What? You know, since I came to this section, I've not made a single research decision. I'm given the same instructions as the lab boy.
That's how Basham said it was. A chemically indifferent analyte, EC split into its components. But I think not. I think it's stable.
Professor, Basham was a great chemist. It was 40 years ago he pronounced on a toxin. If he'd been wrong, surely by now...
Derivatives can be drawn from it easily. The active side hasn't been blocked at all. The arsenic acid is on the other side.
But Basham wouldn't have neglected any possible...
Answer me this. How do you explain that incredible reaction if Basham was right?
Yes, well, but I can't.
Basham was clearly a needle good for nothing. Now, I know I'm right. Now, I propose we work on this together on the most simple derivatives at first. Now, you cannot tell if I'm right or not. Just follow my instructions precisely.
No, I refuse.
Those are the professor's orders.
The man's mad. I mean, to take a classic formula like Basham and declare it's wrong.
He does seem to have a sound experimental basis for it. I've seen that for myself.
Yes, but I can interpret that reaction of his in several different ways.
Gentlemen. I cannot insist too strongly that in the making of these derivatives, my orders are carried out to the letter. You know? You understand?
We are not schoolboys, Professor. We are fully qualified chemists.
Are you arguing with me, sir?
No, but I would just like to be consulted occasionally, that's all.
To say a toxyl is capable of derivatives when you've only got to see from Basham...
You impudent badger, sir.
What?
If you're not prepared to carry out my instructions without question, there's no place for you here.
Very well, we'll go.
Yes. Now. I'll collect my other things later.
If you want our resignation in writing, sir, you'll have it in the morning. Good day to you.
Dr. Brown, surely there's no need...
Why don't you go yourself, Dr. Bertheim? It was only for the sake of Frau Speer that I allowed any of you to be here. I like to choose my own staff.
I thought you wanted me to work on these derivatives.
If your colleagues feel as they do...
Then they are no longer colleagues of mine, Professor.
Very well. But no mistakes.
Ah, Fleming! Mr. Fleming, Captain Douglas.
You're the young man who did so brilliantly at medical school.
Yes. I thought you ought to see how we do things here, sir.
Very nice.
Seu grande entusiasmo não fora até agora afetado pelas críticas cada vez mais frequentes de que o método de Wright não era científico. Esta foi uma época crítica tanto para Wright como para Ehrlich, que haviam se tornado amigos há alguns anos, mas em 1906 voltaram a se encontrar num jantar em homenagem a Ehrlich, que viera a Londres fazer uma palestra.
Chemotherapy, only because serum therapy is so limited.
But so far, Ehrlich, you've not found a single substance.
What about syphilis? How could your vaccine therapy help there? Never. Tell me, what do you know about syphilis?
So far, I have never experienced it.
Talking of sick.
What are they saying? My English isn't very good.
I suspect they're trying to change the subject. A discourtesy in conversation that puts them on a level with women. If they worked for you, Ehrlich, you would call them all impudent badgers.
Yes, we are. Music. Listen, listen. Oh, marvelous. But how so? They're phagocytes, laid out in a line along the edge of the slide.
It facilitates counting. They are caught in a thin film of glycerine.
Such technical ingenuity. You know, work like this I find very satisfying. But tell me, the oxidants in the patient's blood, they prepare the invading bacteria for the white cells, who then devour them.
From the Greek opsono, to prepare food.
Yes, but you have very little idea of how it works.
Well, we do know for certain that there's something in the serum that affects the white cells.
But how do you know what's happening accurately enough to measure the opsonic index as precisely as you need?
Well, we think we can. Thus the technical intricacies.
Yeah. Then these vaccines, which you give to boost the phagocytic power, you have no precise idea how these work.
No, not really, but...
Just that they seem to.
But, well, we've had such successful results.
Now, these vaccines, you don't know their chemical constitution?
No, but well, they're dead vaccine anyhow.
Doesn't really matter.
Yes, but they could actually be dangerous.
Dangerous? But look at the results. You can't argue with them.
True, you've seen improvements registered over hundreds of cases of localized infections, boils, styes, and so on. But they will almost always clear up anyway.
You are suggesting that the system of treatment we have here is built on sand. You may be right. But it is possible that you are wrong. So we have little to lose. We continue to improve our technique, evaluate our findings, and at the same time, provide treatment. We've both seen enough suffering.
Well, your generalizations certainly are persuasive. I only hope that time looks on your efforts kindly.
But how did he contrive to injure his eye with a collar star?
Well, he had had quite a bit to drink, sir. And as you say, when the wine was in, morning for him.
Morning.
He didn't impair his faculties with us.
Oh, I don't know, sir. Some of the observations he made about our work.
If the doubts he was expressing about that were merely the results of an intoxicated mind, maybe it's time I took to drink myself. Well, what are we waiting for? Ask the first patient to come in.
Em sua volta à Alemanha, Ehrlich ouviu a sugestão de que o seu trabalho com trípanosomo talvez pudesse produzir algo eficaz contra outro organismo muito semelhante, a recém-descoberta espiroqueta da sífilis na enfermaria infantil. Os casos prematuramente senis de sífilis congênita eram comuns. Para as crianças não havia remédio. Para os adultos, o único tratamento eficaz era esfregar mercúrio na pele. A doença atingira proporções de uma epidemia. Na Alemanha, cerca de 6% da população morria de sífilis, e um número muito maior era afetado pela doença. Era considerada uma punição dos pecados, e sua cura vista por muitos como um incentivo descarado à imoralidade. No Instituto Speyer, a previsão de Ehrlich sobre a estrutura do atóxico se revelara correta e a equipe de Burton estava conseguindo obter um grande número de novas substâncias dos mais de 600 derivados preparados. Cada uma delas era submetida a testes exaustivos nos laboratórios de biologia. Do laboratório de Kata Sato, Ehrlich trouxe um japonês para fazer os testes, o Dr. Hata, especialista em sífilis. Cada um dos 600 compostos era testado com 3 ou 4 doenças diferentes, e cada doença era testada em dezenas de diferentes animais. O volume do trabalho era gigantesco. O composto 418 pareceu a princípio promissor, mas logo o parasita tornou-se imune à substância. Mas num dia de 1909, depois de 2 anos de trabalho, Hata apresentou um relatório sobre o seu trabalho.
Come in. Ah, my dear colleague. Anything new?
Only first trials. Only preliminary general view.
Oh, good. I'll read them most carefully.
606 efficacious.
606? Well, surely not. We had a totally negative result on that, if I remember rightly. No action whatsoever.
Very efficacious on syphilis in rabbit.
Surely you're mistaken.
I am not mistaken. First, I tried 606 on spirochetes of chickens. Very good results. Very promising. This rabbit, I gave syphilis disease last month. Many syphilis spirochetes can be seen. Soon, they will all go. Everyone. With one dose of 606.
One? You mean just one injection?
That one also. I gave syphilis last month. Last night, I gave 606. Today, no spirochetes.
But big air him.
Truly a magnificent achievement, Paul.
Oh, thank you. I sent some to Alt. He tried it on dogs. Then two of his assistants volunteered. Now he's given it to some of his paralyzed patients who have already shown a marked improvement. And listen to this. From Iverson at Petersburg.
Paul, you don't need to convince me. But you must know that in the eyes of some people, anyone who catches syphilis deserves all he gets. And since in certain quarters you're somewhat resented anyway.
I am?
A lot of people had their eye on Frau Speer's fortune. If they're to learn how it's been used to cure syphilis, well, I'm only trying to warn you that if anything goes wrong, there are some powerful people in Frankfurt who'll delight in using it against you.
If they'd ever visit a syphilis ward...
Ah, but they don't. They don't like to think the disease exists.
We have 200 cases like this one. You'll find no mention of them in the published records. Syphilis?
Of course not. Frankfurt's a respectable city. This man made us tell his wife that he was suffering from a serious skin disease. She never comes to see him. She knows perfectly well he didn't catch it from her.
All I can say is, if syphilis is a judgment from heaven and the wicked, after this, God will have to think of something else.
A injeção da substância conhecida como 606 no músculo era muito dolorosa, mas para alguns portadores da sífilis era pelo menos uma possibilidade de cura da terrível doença. Os pacientes apresentavam melhoras depois de uma única injeção, e mesmo em casos muito graves, a infecção desaparecia depois de apenas uma semana. Foi uma época de triunfo para Ehrlich. Em 1908, ele havia conquistado, juntamente com Metchnikoff, o Prêmio Nobel pelo seu trabalho no campo da imunologia. O preparado 606, ou Salvarsan, como era agora chamado, era aclamado em toda parte. Eram grandes as pressões para que todos pudessem ter livre acesso ao medicamento. E embora o pequeno departamento de química do Instituto Speyer vivesse agora inteiramente devotado à produção de amostras para teste, Ehrlich ainda achava muito cedo para liberar o seu uso. Dentro de pouco tempo, a preocupação com as precauções necessárias à manipulação de uma droga tão perigosa e o próprio volume da produção começaram a afetar Ehrlich e sua equipe.
I've had no reply to the block I sent you yesterday.
What block was that, sir?
Well, asking for an assurance that all the atoxyl derivatives you work on are protected from oxygen and methods used to ensure that.
I don't recall, sir.
Dr. Khan, please be so good as to ask Cartwright to come here with a duplicate book. Do you deny receiving such a block?
No, sir.
Well, where is it?
I tore it up, sir. I'm afraid I thought it was insolent.
You did what? You're in charge here. I don't give directions for fun. When Cartwright comes here with a copy of my block, see that this time you do not tear it up. Excuse me. And let me know this very day what you intend to do to ensure that henceforth my orders are carried out.
But we have many good results. Dr. Schreiber at Magdeburg insists we must publish.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes,
Dr.
Conrad.
Herxheimer has just phoned from the city hospital. He wants you to go over there at once.
Here, police. My coat. Herr Professor!
Can you lift?
No.
Os fatos logo confirmariam os piores temores de Ehrlich. Nos primeiros meses, chegaram notícias de acidentes que resultaram em gangrena e até mesmo paralisia.
You're sure sterilized water was used? Yes, of course. You're sure? I mean, there have been several cases of necrosis. Some doctors have used water from the tap. Well, that's hardly likely here at the city hospital. And as far as I know, all your instructions have been carried out to the letter. As far as you know, didn't you give the injection yourself? Paul, we're giving 606 to every syphilis patient in the hospital. We must try and treat the prostitutes, too. I can't do everything myself.
A reação de Ehrlich foi imediata. Tornou ainda mais rigoroso o controle do uso do salvarsan.
Backwards. Send me a block to ensure that from now on we only supply salvarsan to doctors whose skill I can personally vouch for.
It's impossible, Paul. Already you're causing resentment by supplying to some and not to others.
If limiting supplies is going to cut down on accidents, then supplies must be limited.
Professor.
What is the card?
Telegram, Professor, from Vienna.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Until chemical... This is unbelievable. Lost hearing after salvarsan injection. What have they been doing here? Ask Dr. Bertheim to come here at once. Send a telegram to Professor Finger in Vienna. Request immediate telegraphic reply. What doses injected and how injection made. Pater, find out from which batch Professor Finger received his supply and who else was given it. Now hurry, please.
Thank you, Professor.
Send telegrams to all of them, requesting immediate report and results. Deafness, Marquardt. And salvarsan. I've forgotten just how narrow the acoustic canal is. if spirochetes lodged there were only partly destroyed...
Still no word from Vienna?
No, Professor. But telegrams from everyone else who received supplies from that batch.
No ill effects reported?
Not in any I have opened so far.
Well, at least it can't be our fault. I was afraid it may possibly have oxidized here. Always ensure that supplies are packed in ice. Ah, my dear, such welcome news. All our telegrams confirm that no one but Dr. Finger's patient has gone deaf.
Paul, it's after midnight.
This is it from Vienna, Professor. He gave him only 0.1 grams.
The imbecile, the good-for-nothing imbeciles, should have been 5 times as much. Too small a dose just acts as a stimulant. Why don't they trust me? Leave one spirocate alive in there, and when the others are gone, it gives it just more room to breed. Oh, well, no matter. Repeated doses will clear it. But we must warn everyone.
Paul, come home to bed.
Cenas como estas se repetiriam por mais 3 anos. Em 1910, o primeiro ano em que o Salvarsan foi usado, o próprio Ehrlich controlou todas as 65 mil doses saídas do Instituto.
Direct from the pharmacies. So I said...
Seus esforços valeram a pena e o Salvarsan, saudado como uma grande descoberta, foi usado em todo o mundo.
They place the jars on a shelf and they draw the distilled water off.
Mas este outro trabalho encontrou dificuldades. Suas ideias para o tratamento de outras doenças, como o câncer, foram tragicamente negligenciadas. Apesar de todas as precauções, ele sentia que estava perdendo o controle.
Containers of distilled water must be used. Oh, yes, all right, dear, all right, don't fuss.
Enquanto aumentavam os problemas de Ehrlich com o Salvarsan, em Londres, Wright sabia agora o valor de sua terapia de vacina. A preparação da vacina varava à noite. Por volta de 1911, Wright percebeu que a sua teoria, ao contrário da de Ehrlich, se baseava numa falácia. E, ironicamente, ele tornou-se conhecido como aquele que quase acertou. Em 1913, uma crise moral ameaçou desacreditar completamente Ehrlich e o seu Salvarsan.
My husband accused of making vast profits from the sale of Salvarsan. Who's behind this?
A man called Wassmann. He goes around dressed in monk's habit and distributes this paper, which he calls The Truth, around all the fashionable cafes of Frankfurt.
This piece here. I had evidence that many well-known doctors have accepted bribes from manufacturers for favorable reports. He must be mad.
Yes, I think very possibly he is. But that doesn't help us. This paper is seen by some influential and unsympathetic people.
You're not going to sue?
No, the hospital is.
Surely rubbish like this is best ignored.
I'm afraid not, Hedwig. There are doctors in Frankfurt who've made an extremely good living out of treating syphilis until Salvarsan arrived. They've been trying to discredit us for years.
And Paul? God knows, living with Paul's work on syphilis in this town has been hard enough. And Paul, look at him. He's taken every single criticism of Salvarsan as a personal attack. He's tried to refute every single one, you know that, and has done practically no new work for 3 years, and now this.
Yes, I know, but we have to answer dangerous criticism like this.
If you take this man to court, you'll achieve nothing, absolutely nothing.
Every one of my claims still stands. Every one of them. I shall accuse the doctors of this city, and in particular Herr Geheimrat Ehrlich. Also the magistrates of these courts.
Herr Wassmann, are you accusing the court of bias?
Yes. The magistrates have done nothing to inform themselves during previous hearings of my side of the case. Otherwise, how could they uphold such lies? Namely that Salvarsan is the best scientific treatment for syphilis. Eminent experts, among them Dr. Finger of Vienna, refer to it as lethal medicine. Also, the magistrates have upheld that no prostitute taken to the city hospital, was given Salvarsan treatment against their will. Patently untrue.
Take care, Herr Wassmann.
I have evidence. Witnesses who will testify to what happened to them there. And of the ills that befell them while being treated there. They will tell you of gangrene and deafness and paralysis, all directly caused by treatment by Salvarsan.
You are making this accusation with firm evidence?
What I have said is true.
I hope so. Unfounded accusations
It is not unfounded.
Sit down, Herr Wassmann. We will now proceed to the evidence. Call the first witness.
And what happened there?
I was locked in a damn cellar without food for 5 days. It was what they called a starvation cure. You didn't get any food until you agreed to have the injection.
And was force ever used on you?
To get me into the cellar, you mean? Yes, it was.
And in the end, did you receive the injection?
Yes.
How did it affect you?
Well, first I had this terrible pain, and then I couldn't move my legs. I was paralyzed, and I stayed like that for 2 whole years.
Herr Professor, can we first deal with the evidence from Frau Feist? She described serious paralysis after the use of Salvarsan.
She certainly suffered paralysis, but it can by no means be attributed only to Salvarsan.
Both she and Mulhäuser described disturbances in their hearing.
My case notes contain no reference to that.
So you feel the complaint unjustified?
I believe it to be unjustified, yes.
But Frau Feist has described how she was brutally handled by hospital staff, and in particular, starved into submitting to treatment.
Yes, I heard that. It's absolute nonsense.
You're a damn liar! You know it's true!
We tell the truth, and he ought to as well.
If you people do not keep quiet, you will have to leave the court.
What about us girls that were locked in a cellar for 5 days without food if we refused to take it, eh?
If there is another outburst like this, I shall clear the court.
And so what you are saying, Herr Professor, is that there was no brutality and no solitary confinement.
There was certainly no brutality. However, there were patients who were destructive, who broke china, for instance, and these we have confined not to a cellar, but to a cell with a reduced diet.
But never for more than 3 days, and always under the supervision of a nutritionist. I must stress that these patients could be extremely violent, and on one occasion the doctors had been attacked directly.
Why? Why were the doctors attacked, Professor Herxheim? Have you lost your memory?
I must insist, Dr. Levy, that you will not attend...
I had no idea, truly. I had no idea.
Ehrlich se opunha à abertura de processo contra Wassermann, mas prestou depoimento como testemunha.
Back over the history of Salvarsan for a moment, Herr Geheimrat, and the way in which it has been employed on humans. Is it true that the first injections were given intramuscularly?
Yes.
Will the witness speak up, please?
Yes.
Why then subsequently did you recommend it to be done intravenously?
To avoid pain and prevent the possibility of nerve damage.
Which can cause paralysis?
Yes.
And gangrene, as the defendant suggested.
Yes.
Had that happened?
On certain occasions.
How many occasions?
At this moment, I can't recall.
Really? But enough, at any rate, to recommend as an alternative a method of injection which is more dangerous to use than intramuscular injection. Namely, the intravenous method.
From that comment, it's quite clear you don't understand the nature of clinical tests. Of course there'll be risks. There are always risks. We did everything possible to eliminate them. So that in the end, the benefits by far outweigh the problems.
Financial benefits?
What was that, Herr Wassmann?
No matter.
Tell me, Herr Geheimrat, is it not true that you publicly accused colleagues of malpractice when they discovered that Salvarsan had bad side effects?
Sir, I must ask that this question is withdrawn. The Council is vicariously seeking to inject into these complex debates conflict of a kind that never existed.
Sir, I am seeking solely to determine the nature of the risk involved in using such modified poisons as salvarsan.
The line of questioning can continue.
Then I must point out something quite clearly. I have censured only those that created problems by ignoring instructions and by carelessness.
Dr. Finger, for instance.
In his case, he did not trust the dose level and reduced it to 1/5 of the recommended dose. All his troubles stem from that.
You should not allow this. He is slurring the reputation of a real expert who is not here to defend himself.
Herr Wassmann, this is the last warning I shall give you. Now, will you keep quiet?
He is to blame for this whole shameful affair, and he's trying to pass it off onto other people.
Herr Wassmann, you have repeatedly...
That man is a murderer!
You have repeatedly ignored my warnings, so I will now charge you with contempt of court. Take him down.
All right, I'm going. I'm going. The government is behind this whole business. It's a dirty plot. The corrupt bastards. The Jewish murderer.
Silence in court.
To continue, Herr Geheimrat. Are you listening? Did you not, in fact, threaten these colleagues with court action?
No. I did not. And never would have done. Throughout the preparation for this case, I resisted their progress because I feared what a court might make of complex issues of scientific judgment. Now, having seen the way science has been reduced and degraded here today, how the perspectives of our work has been warped and twisted, my very worst fears have been realized.
Wasserman acabou sendo condenado à pena de 1 ano de prisão. Não pela difamação, mas pelo desrespeito ao tribunal.
I had no idea.
It's not a perfect world, Paul. Something new like this is bound to cause jealousy and controversy.
If only I could have kept control of it.
Ehrlich jamais voltou a ser o mesmo homem. Ficara profundamente abalado pelas reações à sua descoberta e pela maneira como seu trabalho fora mal interpretado. Sua saúde também começou a declinar. Consequência dos 25 charutos diários, uma dieta de água mineral e refeições apressadas, além da preocupação com salvarsan. Ele tinha agora um sério problema cardíaco. Em 1914, ao estourar a guerra, o Instituto de Ehrlich foi tomado pelo exército, mas Ehrlich pôde continuar trabalhando no velho laboratório. O fim do seu trabalho assinalou o fim de uma era de apenas 65 anos, durante os quais os esforços de homens como Pasteur, Koch e Ehrlich produziram os fundamentos científicos para a cura das doenças infecciosas. Ehrlich morreu em 1915 e só 13 anos depois seria dado um próximo passo para o desenvolvimento do seu trabalho. Ironicamente, no mesmo St. Mary's Hospital, no departamento de Sir Alman Wright, por um médico escocês chamado Alexander Fleming. Em 1928, no pequeno laboratório atrás desta janela do segundo andar, ele redescobria a ação quimioterapêutica de uma penicilina comum e abriria o caminho para o remédio mágico que conhecemos hoje, o antibiótico.